Welcome everyone to today's podcast, to today's student session. And today we have got Jadie on, who is an art history lecturer and a breathwork facilitator. And not just that, a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful member of the School of Integrative Healing. And she has so kindly come on today to share her story. I know that this is going to serve so many of you, and me and Jadie were just talking about the power of storytelling, not only the power of being able to share your story, but receiving other women's stories. So I really, really hope that this serves you wherever you are on your journey. and Jadie, I'm just going to dive straight in.
I'm ready.
Perfect. Ready. Yes, babe. So Jadie, and this is the question that I'm asking, to be honest, a lot of the women in the School of Integrative Healing, because I think it's so interesting to hear how we begin to get into this work, you know, how you go from maybe never hearing about this, maybe thinking, oh, the healing work is a bit weird, or it's a bit woo-woo, or it's not for me, or whatever thought we have in our head, to being fully immersed in it. So is this something that's new for you? Is this something that you started a long time ago, and kind of what brought you into this?
Such a beautiful question. Yeah, no, it's definitely not something I've been doing my whole life. You know, my whole teenage and, you know, preteen years, I was very anxious. I was very depressed. I really felt like I didn't fit in the world. And, you know, my mom passed away when I was younger, and that had like a knock-on effect in my life. And so I really struggled socially, and I had a lot of social anxiety. And as a result of that, I was quite heavily medicated from like when I was 13 already. I was taking antidepressants, anti-anxieties, mood stabilizers, sleeping medication, on top of being on birth control as well. So I felt, you know, throughout my teenage years, quite disconnected from myself. And what I can, you know, reflect on now is I can see, you know, how, you know, entire chunks of that portion of my life are, you know, like missing from my memory. You know, it was a very, I think I was in a trauma response for a large portion of that time. And then I went into university, which is also quite, you know, intense, a lot of work, a lot of stress, and really trying to figure out who I was, you know, trying to embody my queerness, going through lots of toxic relationships and navigating a lot of familial like abuse patterns as well in terms of emotional things. And yeah, then after my master's degree, which was probably the most intense time of my life, you know, it was just so stressful, you know, having panic attacks and going to the hospital and having all of these things. I was just so ungrounded and just, you know, desperate to finish this thesis and, you know, finish this part of my life. And you know, after that, I was really left with a sense of emptiness. You know, I was left with the sense of, I don't know what I want, I don't know, you know, who my real friends are, I don't even know who I am, but I knew that I was unhealthy, and I knew that the way that I woke up every day, you know, just feeling so run down, and, you know, just wanting to sleep all the time, and being so tearful, and being so combative, you know, to everyone. Everything would trigger me, everything would set me off and make me either really sad or really angry, and it just didn't feel like how I wanted to live my life anymore. And then when we hit the pandemic, I was instantly like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to go inward and to really start to kind of do the clearing on some of these things, you know, to really start unpacking these things that I believed were my personality. I believed that this was who I was. This is just how I was going to be forever. And yeah, so kind of meeting myself in so many different modalities, you know, meditation, breath work, yoga, trauma release, psychology, you know, all of these different things. And, you know, starting to follow your profile and just consuming your content, like, and yeah, and it's through, you know, through that process that I was, you know, suddenly starting to feel lighter. I was clearing so much gunk out of my system that, you know, I came off of my medication, all of them, including my contraceptive. And, you know, it's been such a journey. And now I can look back at that time and be like so appreciative for, you know, how much I survived through, but realizing that it's actually time for me to thrive now. And that part of me is actually, yeah, it's loved, but understood that, you know, that's actually was never my personality, that's not the person I was supposed to be, you know. And that's the beauty of this work, is you get to kind of peel back the layers, you know. Yeah.
I love that, Jadie, and it's just so funny because this is the third episode that we've recorded, and you're the second person that said, I realized that I wasn't who all of that I thought was my personality isn't, right? And I think that, you know, we're kind of educated from young children to believe that we can't change, or, you know, we are our depression. You know, me and Jadie have slightly similar stories in kind of our journey with mental health, and very similar to you. You know, when I was on my medication, I thought it was just who I was. I just thought I was a depressed person, and I just thought that I would not experience joy because, you know, that's what I'd experienced in my family. It's what I'd seen in my mother. And so it's such a huge awakening to even find out that you can change this, that you don't have to always be on your medication, that you can come through, you can heal, you can shed, you can exactly that you're saying, going from survival to thriving. And actually that's one of the reasons for creating this podcast, because we are living in a world where there are a lot of people living in survival and they don't know that thriving even exists, right? So yeah, tell me more about what you thought was your personality and and you've actually realized was not.
Yeah, so yeah, completely like what you shared, you know. I was brought up with this idea that having poor mental health ran in my family. My mom really struggled with depression, and she committed suicide when I was 13. And, you know, from a space of love and, you know, fear, so understanding and noticing that, you know, my father was always quite, worried about us and always kind of affirming, you know, this runs in your blood, these are your genes, you know, these are things that you're going to deal with for the rest of your life, and you need to be coping with them, you need to be on your medication, you need to be taking care of yourself. You know, also because that was a big thing for our family to go through. And, you know, my sister also navigates this in her own way as well. And so I always just felt like these episodes where I would just not want to get out of bed, and I would not want to see people, or I would be so codependent and so attached to people that I would overinvest in friendships and overinvest in relationships, and I was afraid to be alone, and I was afraid of being abandoned. And, you know, so little things would be triggering to me, you know, like people changing plans at the last minute would, you know, completely freak out my nervous system, and I would just go into like a full anxiety attack, or, you know, feeling like I didn't fit in a braai, which is a South African word for barbecue. So like at social settings where, you know, like someone's maybe not talking to you and you suddenly feel so out of place and so like you don't belong, you know. And so a big part of my journey, especially now in IH, is, you know, affirming to myself that I do belong, and that it's okay for me to be on my own, and it's okay for me to have healthy relationships that I don't like attach to people and seek my validation and self-worth from them, you know. And so yeah, a big part of it for me has been realizing that while yes, the women in my family have had depressive episodes and we have struggled with mental health, that doesn't need to be our identity. It doesn't need to be a part of how we show up in the world every day, you know. And that's not to say I don't still have anxiety, and it's not to say that I don't have down days. But, you know, now I view it more as like, okay, this is a moment in time, not, oh, this is just who I am, you know, this is how it will always be, you know, forever. And, you know, like when I came off my medication, and obviously it takes a while to get used to it, but, you know, there was like a full like 9-month patch where I didn't feel anxiety at all. And I felt the most elated and joyful that I'd felt probably ever, you know. And so it's like these moments of like, wow, like that connection to who you really are, besides these stories of like normalizing it for yourself, and that it's okay, that this is who you are, but in actual fact it's not who you are, you know.
100%. And, you know, I think as humans, we very often get confused between an experience that we have and who we are. So you've had a depressive experience. That's not who you are, right? You are Jadie, and then there's a depressive experience. Like I'm Hannah, and I've had depressive experiences. And the problem is that, you know, when we decide that depression is who we are or anxiety is who we are, we kind of get trapped in these cycles and these loops, and sometimes it can be hard to see out of that. So I think for people even listening, creating a different, see, I was saying to Jadie before this, being bilingual means that I can't speak a single language well. So I'm like, differentiation, this happens all the time when I'm teaching. But yeah, no, and I'll just do some Spanish hands to make it better. But creating a difference between understanding the concept of an experience and who you are, and not making that part of your personality. And Joe Dispenza says this, and he says, you know, your personality creates your personal reality. So when we actually do this work and you see your personality change, then your reality, your physical reality, has to change as well, right? So yes, it sounds amazing to not think of yourself as these things and to change who you are, but what's even more extraordinary is that that's literally the pathway to living the life that you desire. So it's like it's two birds, one stone. See, how could I make these things? Is that the sentence? Is that what people say? And that's actually how the path to healing creates a different life as well, right? And so we see that that's really the same. So Jadie, kind of expanding more on this, you said that you dived into your healing work as the pandemic happened. And I think the pandemic was a big wake-up call for a lot of people. The pandemic was an opportunity to dive maybe into our stories, into our healing because the world slowed down. But what's taken you from diving into your healing work more so when the pandemic happened, and then deciding to choose the School of Integrative Healing? And what have you really got from the School of Integrative Healing that maybe you weren't getting prior to joining?
Oh, that's such a good question. I feel, So like I said, I've been watching your content for a long time, and we had connected on Instagram here and there, you know, over the months that I had been following you. And it was always like a ping. I don't know how else to explain it, but like just this little feeling like this is going to be so powerful for you. And I kept putting it off. You know, I have also these limiting beliefs around money and, you know, what is responsible to spend, and, you know, like investing in myself and, you know, what that looks like. And so all of these different things were kind of these little barriers of what I was, you know, between me and joining the course initially. And, you know, the more I dived into my healing work and the more I started looking at, you know, the power of the content you were sharing, I realized that a very key thing for me that I'd been missing is consistency. And I know that's such a random thing to say, but, you know, I am one of those people who have been changing this. Consistency is easy for me now. That is my new affirmation. But in the past, I've been in these cycles of going all in with something for like and nothing for a month, back to normal habits, and then all in for a week. And, you know, and so what really struck me about the School of IH is that personal accountability to show up every single day for your transformation, for the things, for your goals, for your growth, and to have Hannah literally with you, you know, 4 times a week in your ear, on the Facebook group, with your buddy, with people sharing consistently their wins and their challenges, and to be in such a potent container just felt like, wow, you know, this is, you know, how can you join something like this and not completely change? You know, this is so potent, you know? And so, you know, we booked that discovery call, and on the call, I had this entire feeling of like, I'm going to do this, and it's completely crazy. And when we ended the call, I remember just bursting into tears and being like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do this. And then I did. So yeah.
And then not only did you do it, you paid off the end of the course randomly one day. Jadie's like, yeah, babes, I've got all of the money. Yeah, I don't even need the monthly payment because it's done, right? That was amazing.
Which in itself was such a surprise, because my partner and I had just gone through this major financial setback, you know, and we had this massive experience within his business that was just like really stressful way to start the year. And Hannah just kept affirming to me, you know, do the work, the money will come, just keep, you know, don't suddenly let this spook you, and don't go back into those old thoughts, you know, consistently show up. And literally, I think that was the Monday, and I was freaking out. And by the Thursday, I'd had a family member randomly gift me my payment for that month. And then the following month, I had 3 months up front. So it really does work. And I know it sounds so like, as Hannah would say, woo woo. But it's, yeah, it's amazing what happens when you just kind of create an open channel, you know, and you don't let your mind convince you not to do something and that you can't do something.
Amazing. Yeah, amazing. And I love everything that you've shared. And it's like, it's interesting because as humans, we tend, there is a very common pattern that it's that we show up for the work when things are going well, right? And when things aren't going well, oh no, we push it away. And so, you know, you've actually just navigated a situation recently that has needed a new side from you. Maybe it's needed you to dig deeper into your power. And like, if you're not in a container that's reminding you that, it's exactly what you say. It's so easy to go back to old ways of being instead of finding the potential in the situation, because this is the medicine in this, is every situation that happens to us is neutral. It's not good nor bad. How we think about it defines what we'll get from that situation. So a lot of people may be hearing what Jadie experienced might say, you know, they might have normal thought patterns to it, but it was holding Jadie to, this is happening for your growth. This is a good thing. This is going to mean that you manifest even more than before. And whilst we're navigating something like that, it's quite difficult to hold that for yourself. And so just like you guys are in the School of Integrative Healing, you know, me as a coach and a facilitator, I have a coach that holds me to that when I'm navigating opportunities for alchemy. Let's call them that, opportunities for alchemy. Every problem is an opportunity for alchemy, right? And we do need that framework, right, to hold us, right? And so I think sometimes a lot of us get into the mentality of I can do it on my own, and that's actually a trauma response. I can do it on my own. I can prove, it can either be, you know, needing to prove something, or it can be, you know, fear of hoping or bringing something in. There's loads of kind of avenues that can come through, but ultimately you're going to be slowing down your growth and you're making life more difficult for yourself. And one of the big things that we do in integrative healing is that, how can I have all that I desire and let it be easy, and let myself be supported, and let this be pleasurable, and let myself have the community and the coach and all of these things. And so actually, as you're listening to this, it might be interesting for you to tap into, where am I not allowing myself to receive what I actually want? Because we do that all of the time. And so, you know, when Jadie hopped on that call and she was like, I want to be in this container, and it felt crazy, she could have retreated and gone back to, I'm not going to allow myself to have that. I'm not going to allow myself to invest in myself. But she chose to allow herself to have that. And so more good has to come, because she's allowing herself to hold and have more. What else are you creating in your life, Jadie?
I think what's been so beautiful for this journey, and just kind of touching on what you shared about, you know, being so fiercely independent and not wanting to have support, you know, I think that's also been such a big part of my journey as well, you know, because, you know, my entire master's thesis was a feminist thesis. And, you know, with my mom passing away when I was young, I was also, you know, thrown into growing up quite quickly and being so independent. And even in my love relationships, you know, like I was always like very assertive. I am, you know, taking care of myself and paying for myself. I've got this, you know, all on my own. But, you know, as you said, that in itself is a trauma response. It's a fear of being vulnerable. It's a fear of accepting support. And for me, also like a fear of rejection, you know, of asking for support and someone letting me down, or, you know, abandoning, you know, an agreement that we had, or, you know, that kind of, those were like the fears that I had had. And so what's so beautiful about this container is, you know, you're receiving that support all the time, even though you're also very much on your own personal journey. And so a big part of that personal journey for me has been, you know, I'm launching my own business at the moment. So I'm launching my own breathwork business. And so even in that has been so beautiful, because, you know, it's navigating your limiting beliefs about money, about, you know, your own worth as a facilitator, about, you know, can I even open my own business? You know, is this, you know, part of, because if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have said, oh no, I never want to own my own business. You know, I would rather just earn a salary and, you know, be super comfortable and not worry about these things. But that also, like, a fear of rejection, a fear of people not supporting me. And now you're in this very personal experience, but also with someone who's holding you accountable to being the highest version of yourself. So sometimes I'll share with Hannah, I'm very afraid to do that. And one of these things was to go live on Instagram. This is something I've been so afraid to do for so long. And so Hannah was like, okay, cool, that's your homework. And I was like, wow, okay. And myself and my friend who I'm doing a collaboration with, we went live on Instagram last night. And it went beautifully. It went so smoothly. And so it's these moments of like having someone have faith in you when you don't think that you can do it yourself. You know, it's just having someone, just to see the potential in you and to hold you accountable to your potential and not to your current reality, if that makes sense. Yeah.
It makes complete sense. And so I think, you know, when we're dreaming big, the environment that we're in right now, our friends, our family, aren't always holding the same belief systems. And so it's very easy, because we become a product of our environment. It's very easy to fall back into old ways of being, not believing in ourselves, not doing the thing when our environment isn't doing it. And so it's really important to have a container like this, you know, which, you know, what Jadie's talking about isn't just me. It's like all of the women in this container that are doing this as well, right? And seeing people living this way. And so what maybe we may have considered as crazy before, we realize isn't that crazy at all. And I think it's Bob Proctor that does a definition for crazy. And he says, crazy is thoughts or desires outside your current reality, right? Or outside what people in your environment think that is normal. So crazy is actually a good thing. We need crazy to create change. If not, we just create more of the same, right? And so in that container that well, Jadie's in and all the other women are in, you've got women that are consistently doing crazy things. So crazy becomes the new normal. It's like what you guys do is like you show up, you have crazy dreams, you do crazy things, and then you experience crazy things, right? You experience all the goodness that comes with that. And I think that in itself is so powerful, because I kind of look at my trajectory as well, and I've needed to surround myself with people that are doing the same things. We just need to, because if not, you just go back to how you were. And this goes back to that personality piece of, we go back to believing that's just who we are and that's just what life is, you know, kind of all these things that we're told as a society. It's better to be safe than sorry. Don't dream too big or you'll be disappointed. And stepping out of that takes bravery. Actually, do you feel that this work has required a level of bravery for you?
More than I have ever been in my life. This is the bravest I've ever been. Not only for my own business, but also just showing up in the container, you know, just being authentic and vulnerable. And I think that's also the beautiful thing about it is, you know, some of these women see you in all your warts and all, you know, your tears and your moments of doubt and fear and all of these things. And so even in that, you know, it's not only in the massive wins of launching a business and you know, having this come right and manifesting this amount of money, but it's also the bravery to actually be open and honest about where you genuinely are and the beliefs that you have. You know, those are the things that you normally lock away in your mind. And, you know, I'm a great one. You know, I've always kind of lived in a very confident, extroverted personality, you know, with like a million insecure, you know, unsafe feelings on the inside. So to actually allow people to see, you know, what's actually on the inside, not just the mask that you put on, to make it through the day, you know, that takes bravery, you know, to say, you know, this is what I'm struggling with. These are my emotions. We did an inner child alchemy session in IH that was probably the most terrified I've been for as long as I can remember. I was literally like shaking. I was like, this is like intense. You know, these are women that you haven't met in real life, and they're seeing these parts of you that you've hidden, you know, your whole life, or parts that you hadn't even seen, you hadn't even reflected on. So that is the bravery, is being able to transmute things and to have things come to the surface and just trust that you're going to be held. And that's the safety of the container. And, you know, I was so afraid in that session, and literally I received so many beautiful messages from people saying, wow, I resonated so much. And so it's actually a journey that you think you're alone and this is my personal little shame bubble, but in reality, you know, people are more alike than you think.
Let's kind of close on this point, because I think that's so beautiful and so perfect. There are 12 wounds that we can have as humans. That's it, 12. And we all have manifestations of these 12 wounds, these 12 core emotions. This is what they teach in shamanism. So I think very often when we're not used to being in spaces where we are loving and accepting all parts of ourselves, we can think that we're alone, right? I'm the only one that feels abandoned. I'm the only one that's scared of rejection. I'm the only one that has a shame bubble. And then you come to this space and there are all of these women and you're like, wow, I'm not alone. And actually, and this is what we're talking about, the power of story, right? You know, when we do the trauma processes, we tell the story to clear the story, but we still tell the story. And it's really important to tell the story and to honor that. And actually, I think it's exactly as you said. Jadie so bravely did a session with me in front of the group, because we do demos so you guys can see. And I'm pretty sure that session wasn't just healing for you, but for every woman who watched you, right? And I think when we start doing the demos, there's a real shift in the course, because we realize that, wow, if I can love that person in this trauma process who feels all of these things, maybe I can love that part of myself. And so if we see ourselves as like a house, we have all of these rooms that we love that are light and spacious. And we have these rooms that are parts of us that are maybe we've got the door shut and they're dark and we don't want to acknowledge. And what we do in integrative healing is we start opening those doors and we start putting love in those dark spaces as well. And all of those things that maybe that you've been ashamed of or you've not wanted the world to see, you realize that they are so beautiful and they are part of your journey. And opening those doors is going to give you so many gifts. And that's the process of alchemy.
And then you get to walk through the world feeling like a more embodied version of yourself, you know, because you're not blocking yourself off from the parts of yourself that you thought were unlovable, but you're choosing to love them, you know.
And the way that you love yourself is directly proportional to the love that you can receive with from others. So your relationships improve, you allow yourself to have more money. You know, Louise Hay talks about this. After years of working with people, she used to work on loads of different topics. And by the end of her life, she was like, I'm just going to work with people to love more of themselves. And then the rest just comes. It just comes, doesn't it? Because you can let yourself have it.
Yeah, it's like a domino effect, you know. You can't change one thing without it changing everything, you know.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for hopping on, Jadie. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I actually feel like you could do several more hours because there's so many parts of your story that I want to unpick more. So we'll leave that for a future time. I'm so sure this has served so many women listening to this. And thank you for letting yourself be heard and seen on this podcast and coming on to share your story.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been such an awesome experience to get to know you and get to know myself through this. So thank you for having me on.
So welcome. And ciao, everyone.